thing working? Can you guys hear me? Let's see. Hopefully I won't. Hopefully I won't clear my throat and deafen you. So sorry. So you're going to see me grab a drink. I've got a hot drink just because I do have to clear my throat every so often. So it means nothing. I'm good now. I appreciate everybody's thoughts and prayers. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. There's an announcement and prayer list up on the table. I encourage you to get it. I'm going to start changing a little bit because we go through this thing twice. We go through it in class, and then we go through it again as service starts. So I'm going to stop going through it so much in class. I'm going to hit a couple, and that's it, because I always end up late. What I will cover real quick is just some COVID updates. I know that some of those came in yesterday. Terry Back is improving at home. Joe and Shelby are still on this. Are they? They're better? Okay. Just finishing out the quarantine kind of thing? Okay. Yep. All good. Glad they're doing better. Robert Hodge Jr. is on this. We do want to remember Riley Townsend, Nimmo, who is battling COVID and pregnant. I don't know if anybody's got any updates on her. She's doing well. Good. It always makes me nervous when someone gets it when they're pregnant. So, Felina, is it Payer? Is that how you pronounce your last name? Felina Payer. Is recovering from a surgery with complications, seizures, and now has, I think I saw, has COVID on top of that. So remember Felina. They work out of the Richmond congregation. They are missionaries in Guyana. Vendetta Stamper and her son Tommy still need to keep Greg Stone in prayer. Steve Tapp will be in quarantine until the 17th. His condition, is he, anybody here doing okay? Okay, good. And then Michelle Wilson. I don't have a low.
Heavenly Father, we thank you again for today. Bless us with each day for all the good and great in our lives. Ask you to be with those that are on our prayer list, and comfort them and feel their needs, Heavenly Father. We know that we're going through this time. As everybody has had to deal with this new virus that's going around, Heavenly Father, we pray that you watch over and feel their needs again, whatever it may take. Heavenly Father, we ask you to be with Doug this morning as he leads our class, and may we learn from it and apply it to our lives. Heavenly Father, we ask that you would comfort us in the days to come, Heavenly Father, and give us the mercy of prayer in Christ's name.
All right, thank you. All right, well, Jerry, thank you for covering class last week on pretty short notice. Okay, thank you. I found out myself Friday morning, I think, is when I found out. So I appreciate that, and appreciate the approach you took to the class. So we're gonna move on from family that we talked about that Jerry talked about last week, and I'm going to see if I can get a couple of these topics in today. If not, then so be it. But want to talk about friendship to start out, and then we're going to talk about folly. And folly, you'll see, falls into a lot of the first lesson that we had on wisdom, right? They kind of they oppose each other. But first, friendship. So when we look at friendship, let's take a look at. Might have needed batteries for the clicker. Is what I might have needed. Can you forward me? There we go. And go ahead and click through and build it so we don't have to. There we go. Thank you. All right, a couple of key scriptures there that we want to talk about with respect to friendship. Just to understand a little bit about what Proverbs and the Bible in general says about friendship, to give us some context here. Proverbs 18, verse 24. It says, "A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." Now, there's a little, when you read the commentary, there's a little discussion, if you will, about the translation there on "be friendly." It could mean more "be challenging," as opposed to what we think of as being friendly. Being friendly, you'll see as we go through this, isn't just being puffy and nice. It's being a true friend, and we'll see what that means. But a man who has friends must himself be friendly, or be a friend. Think of it that way. There's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So, friends challenge and support each other. That's what this says, and that's what you'll see as we go through this. A friend is not somebody that is just always, well, let me see. The best example, the example that comes to my mind, and everybody used to watch the Looney Tunes kind of cartoons at some point, I think. You've got Butch, the big dog, and then you've got the little pug or whatever that bounces around, following him around. Hey, Butch, hey, Butch, hey. You guys remember that cartoon? Well, that's not a friend necessarily, right? Because he's always there. It doesn't matter what Butch is doing. He's always positive, positive, positive. I mean, it's nice to have somebody like that, but that's not what friendship is represented by. That's not what represents friendship. Friends support each other. There is some of that constant encouragement and uplift and support, but there's also some challenge, some guidance, some help. If we take that a little further, we look at kind of a related verse there in John 15. And we read 12 through 15. It says, oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Hot dog. It'll go forward, but not backward. Can you take me back one, and then I should be able to flip it forward. All right, so 12 through 15 says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I've called you friends. For all things that I heard from my Father I have made known to you." Jesus calls us friends. Is Jesus all about saying, "Oh, you're great, you're doing great things, you're doing great, you're doing..." No, Jesus challenges us, doesn't he? Jesus gives us guidelines. Jesus says you need to live this way. If you're not living this way, you need to fix that. Why does Jesus say that? Why does he invest the time and effort to give us correction? Because he loves us. Because he is our friend. And he wants legitimately what's best for us. Got James 2 up there, so let's take a look at what that says. Verse 21 through 23. "Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered Isaac his son on the altar? Do you see that faith was working together with his works, and by works faith was made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness, and he was called a friend of God." Abraham shows us the other side, how to be a friend to Jesus, by the example of his friendship to God. It reflects how we can be loyal friends to each other. Did Abraham struggle with what God was asking him to do? Well, we know he did, with the things he was being asked to do. But what did he do? He didn't resent it. He didn't walk away from it. He said, "You know what? I'm going to trust that you are guiding me in the right path." Any questions, comments? So then the first thing that we want to do is, or the second thing, is let's define friendship. More specifically, let's look at what differentiates being friendly from being a friend. You guys get the difference there, right? So what does it mean to be a friend? So looking through some definitions, some of them are shorter and others, I thought the one from Britannica really was more comprehensive. But it says that friendship stresses an affection. It stresses respect and some level of intimacy. You can't be a friend from a distance, so to speak, right? And that's not physical distance, that's an emotional distance. You have to have some intimacy. You have to have trust between people. In all cultures, friendship is important to relationships throughout life. It goes on to specifically give some description about friendship. And it says it's characterized by 5 features. I just summarized three thoughts there, but First, it is a dyadic relationship. Now, I had to look up dyadic, I'll be honest. Sorry. But it generally means it takes two, right? That's generally. But it says, meaning that it involves a series of interactions between two individuals known to each other. It is used very often in mathematics, so a relationship between two numbers, but you don't need to know that. But it is an interaction between two is what dyadic means. It's not just two stationary objects, it's an interaction between two is really what it gets to. Number two, it is recognized by both members of the relationship, and it is characterized by a bond or a tie of reciprocated affection. Number three, it is not obligatory. Two individuals choose to form a friendship with each other. In Western societies, friendships are one of the least prescribed close relationships, with no formal duties or legal obligations to one another. Number four, it is typically egalitarian in nature. Unlike parent-child relationships, for instance, each individual in a friendship has about the same amount of power and authority in that relationship. And then number five, it is almost always characterized by companionship and shared activities. In fact, one of the primary goals and motivations of friendship is companionship. In addition, adolescent and adult friendships often perform other functions, such as serving as sources of emotional support and providing opportunities for self-disclosure. So that's just the, whatever you want to call it, clinical definition, if you will, an explanation of friendship. What is a friend if you have to lay it out on paper? If we have to, or if we want to see what that means in more biblical terms, I point you to 1 Corinthians 13. I think we're familiar with that chapter. But specifically, verses 4 through 6 says, "Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up. It does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth." If we are to love one another and love our friends, this is how we approach, in biblical terms, friendship. Agree, disagree?
Our friendship, as far as Christian friends, is also, I'm not always going to tell you exactly what you want to hear. And sometimes I'm going to be telling you, this is not leading you in the right direction, or you're going to tell me this, you're not. And I think a true friend will do that.
Mike says that, especially in Christian friendships, but I think overall, a true friend is not just there to tell you what you want to hear. They're there to give you guidance, what you need to hear. As we go through these next couple of slides, we're going to explore more about the wisdom of friendship, because that's what Proverbs is about, right? It is our wisdom guidebook. It is just a side note. I just had a couple minutes to think about stuff the last week. And this maybe is an elementary revelation. I'll claim brain fog if that's the case. But you think of all the anecdotal statements of wisdom that you hear. Just whatever they are. And now, of course, I can't come up with one quick quip. But little anecdotal statements of wisdom, and I don't care if they put Buddha, Confucius, or just general good old wives' tale kind of wisdom. Every single one of them comes from the Bible. When you go down to the root and you follow where it comes from, all wisdom, all of those little wisdom statements, they get their source from God's Word. Challenge me on it. That's just my own observation. But next time you hear one of those little quips, Go try to look through that, and I think you'll see that there is some scripture that will be the basis of what that statement came from for almost everything. So we talk about wisdom in Proverbs, wisdom in Ecclesiastes, and in other books, and it just reinforces that this is where we need to be getting our guidance. So again, maybe that's elementary. Sorry. All right, I'll pick back up. So we're going to look at what to expect from a friend and how to evaluate fake friends that maybe we should avoid. So, friendship versus being friendly. First of all, Proverbs 27, verse 6. It says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. I like that language. You know, the first verse that we read was 18:24, and it's one who has friends must be friendly, or more accurately is to be a friend, to challenge one another, as Mike kind of pointed out. Real friendship can be closer than family at different times, is what it says. So when we look at 27 verse 6, what do you think that means by wounds? What's it talking about? That a wound is faithful. Tells you what you need to hear. And sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it hurts. Is there to stand with you. So, that's right. Is it easy to tell somebody something that might hurt about themselves? No, it's not. Not at all. So, why go through that agony, right? And the effort, if you will, the risk of telling somebody? Because you love them. Because they are your friend. Why would the kisses, what does it mean by kisses of an enemy? Telling you what you want to hear, right? The little dog that's bouncing around, hey Spike, you're great, hey Spike, right? That's fun. It's nice to have sometimes, but that's not real. And they can lead you down the wrong path. Skip on up to verse 17. As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Iron sharpens iron. Helping with continence is to help someone remain calm and confident. We started out talking about wisdom and anger. Now, what did we say basically anger or foolish anger? How did it manifest? This is going back 2 or 3 weeks, so it's impulsiveness, right? It's that knee-jerk reaction that we talked about. Flying off the edge or going off on, in some direction. Kind of losing your composure a bit. Your continence. So, a friend helps keep their friend in check. Right? They help them keep their composure. They help them from being foolish, which leads us into the folly discussion. That's what friends do for each other. True friends. Questions? Comments? Disagreements? Peanuts? Popcorn? Sorry. All right. Yes.
Do you think the rule of life is you don't have many friends like this? I mean, these kinds of friends, at least it's been my experience, are few and far between. You have some of them, I mean, you don't have hundreds of them.
Yeah, they're rare. I think they're rare. And I think, when you kind of explore it that way, that's why a lot of us will say our spouse is our best friend, right? I don't necessarily want to go hang around. Oh, she's here. I love hanging around with my spouse. She is quick to tell me all of this and to keep me from going off the edge. I wish I could do the same for her. She doesn't hear me, but I can. I could see that. They kind of have to be your peers, if you will, right? So I can see that. You would need other preacher friends to be able to do that. That's good observation. So these types of friends are rare. If we have multiple of them, we should consider ourselves blessed. But we do need to have one or two in our lives.
God being a friend to Cain, when he tells Cain, why are you angry? Why is the countenance fallen? If you do what's right, you be lifted up. And he was being a friend. God is our friend. He was trying to be a friend. What being a friend to Cain did not respond well to it. And not give people how to talk to you. And I really try to.
That's a really good. So Cindy points out really a kind of a direct example here of God being a friend to Cain, pointing out why are you angry, right? And telling him if you do these things, it'll work out for you. And of course, Cain choosing to not be such a friend, to be foolish by definition in Proverbs, and to go on his way and resist that friendly advice. So let's talk a little bit about qualities to seek and qualities to avoid, right? First of all, what can lead us astray in terms of friendship, the friends that we choose? If we look at Proverbs 12, verse 26, and there's a lot of this kind of guidance throughout. The righteous should choose his friends carefully. Can't stress that enough from everything that you read. For the way of the wicked leads them astray. It matters who we hang out with. Because friends are going to influence us. When we hang around folks, we as humans, we want to advise somebody. We tend to want people, if you get down to the psychology of it, to be like us. We tend to want synergy, but we don't want to change our ways. We want them to come toward us. So we're going to advise and guide someone, we being whoever. So when you hang out with folks that may not be directed in the, with their mind in the right path, so to speak, it's going to pull you. And can you resist? Yeah. Is it easy? No. It gets hard because you want to be friends. 13:20. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. And we'll go on and look at 22:24. Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man do not go. Choosing friends is vitally important, but it's often overlooked. We're not very strategic about it sometimes. It's okay to have acquaintances and all of that, but repeatedly Proverbs gives us warnings about the types of behavior to watch out for and avoid, and what a true friendship should look like. Our real friends keep us humble. They don't overinflate our egos. The relationship is not contingent on our popularity or income, and the relationship is mutual. Friends will engage each other equally with support and critique. So, those who would lead us astray, in addition to these verses that we just read, turn over to Romans 16. We'll look at verse 17 and 18. It says, "Now I urge you, brethren, note those who cause divisions and offenses, contrary to the doctrine which you learned, and avoid them. For those who are such do not serve our Lord Jesus Christ, but their own belly, and by smooth words and flattering speech deceive the hearts of the simple." Now, it's talking about false teachers, but can a friend, the wrong kind of friend, fit that? I mean, we have to watch out for the same thing. Those who sow division will lead us down the wrong path. Sometimes people have motives to their friendship. You ever see that? Business world, you call that networking. I'm terrible at networking. Proverbs 19. We're going to look at 4, then we'll go down to 6 and 7. Wealth makes many friends, but the poor is separated from his friend. In 6 and 7, many entreat the favor of the nobility, and every man is a friend to one who gives gifts. All the brothers of the poor hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He may pursue them with words, yet they abandon him. Ever heard anybody talk about how many new friends and family they get after they win the lottery? Or something happens for them? Seems like all of a sudden everything's going your way, right? Proverbs 24, verse 14. So shall the knowledge of wisdom be to your soul. If you have found it, there's a prospect, and your hope will not be cut off. So-called friends with motives. Are they attracted to your popularity or something that they perceive that you have? We have to be wary of one-way friendships where it's not a mutual give and take. Then what kind of things can cause division when we have those friends, right? What do we want to avoid when we have those good friends that can split that? Well, Proverbs 16. And there's several things I'm summarizing here. If you go through the scriptures that are in the guideline, you'll see a lot more of these types of guidances. But 16:28 says, "A perverse man sows strife, and a whisperer separates the best of friends." What's it mean by a whisperer? Sorry? Gossips. Somebody that, as friends, you have an intimate relationship, right? Well, intimacy, and again, just an emotional intimacy, it still infers privacy, right, and trust. And somebody that goes and talks about things between you in terms of gossip, not to help you, but in terms of gossiping, that's going to drive a wedge between you, is it not? If we move on up to 17, verse 18. A man devoid of understanding shakes hands in a pledge and becomes a surety for his friend. Surety means a guarantee. It's a cosign, basically. There's quite a bit of guidance against cosigning for a friend. Why? Anybody want to say it? You can't control people. You don't know what they're going to do. You can't predict. And if you co-sign for them and they leave you stuck with it, what happens to your friendship? Now, somebody could look at the flip side of that. Well, if you're really a friend, you're going to help me with blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe I can help you without co-signing for you. Or maybe as your friend, I would tell you, if you can't get that on your own, maybe you shouldn't have it. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but lots of advice. Don't be a surety for a friend. You can't control them. You set yourself up for disappointment. Questions? Comments? Okay, let's talk about folly. I got a few minutes and a short lesson on folly. I think we can do this. Folly. Let's look at Proverbs 15, verse 21. Folly, I like this. This is why I put this up there. I think it's a real. I like the language here. Folly is a joy to him who is destitute of discernment. But a man of understanding walks uprightly. Destitute of discernment. Somebody tell me what that means. Who lacks sense. What is discernment? Decision making, right? What is destitute? Means lacking, means doesn't have it, right? You're destitute, you're away from, whatever. So, you don't have the ability to make good decisions. You act before you think, is what it comes down to. That is folly. Let's look at Ephesians. All right, now this one's dead. Can you forward the slide, please? Let's look at Ephesians 15, verse 15. Sorry, Ephesians 5. I don't know why I got that one in there. Ephesians 5:15. See that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand that what the will of the Lord is. To walk wisely is to understand the will of the Lord. Still not working. Can you go ahead and advance the next one? And just build it out, please. All right, so what is folly? Well, again, definition of folly. This is from dictionary.com. It's a lack of good sense or normal prudence and foresight It's criminally or tragically foolish actions or conduct, also known as lewd behavior. A foolish act or idea. An excessively costly or unprofitable undertaking. Now, there is one element of this definition that I thought was interesting. Folly is also a noun. I'd never heard this. But really in old Europe, a folly was a false tower or decorative kind of building of some sort. Typically, I mean, the pictures and the impression I got was as kind of a tower. It's intended to build up a landscape to make it look like it's a lot more than it really is. And it was called a folly. So it's a false pretense is what it is. If we look at 2 Timothy 3, verses 6 through 9. For of this sort are those who creep into households and make captives of gullible women loaded down with sins, led away by various lusts, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now, as Jannes and Jambres resisted Moses, so do these also resist the truth. Men of corrupt minds disapprove concerning the faith, but they will progress no further, for their folly will be manifest to all, as theirs also was. To not have rule over your spirits. I mean, this is a comment from one of the commentaries that I use. But it's folly when men have no rule over their own spirits, but despise that which is good and to be honored. Folly is an act of foolishness, quite simply, or the actions of a fool. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. So, qualities of folly or the foolish. Proverbs 1. We start out quick. Verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. 22 is going to carry that on further. How long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. We'll go through all these, and then we'll make a couple of comments. Proverbs 10. Verse 18. Whoever hides hatred has lying lips. Whoever spreads slander is a fool. Flip on up to 23. To do evil is like sport to a fool, but a man of understanding has wisdom. When we look at like Proverbs 1, the verses 7 and 22 and the like, or even the comment that folly is sport. What's that mean? When it says that a fool hates wisdom or despises it, what does that mean? When they reject it or when they refuse it, what typically happens? If we are a friend, if we are trying to be a friend to someone, and I'm sure we've all had this situation, if you are trying to be a true friend to someone and you are trying to coach them on something that it might be awry or could go awry in their lives, how might they respond? Kind of one of two ways, right? They're going to say, wow, I never really thought about that. Or What? Who do you think you are? You don't know me. Why are you telling me this stuff? What gives you the right to say this stuff to me? That's what it's describing. That's the foolish response. Fools reject wisdom. Now, I guess it's not always just black and white, because we also have to discern the advice that our friend is giving us, right? That's why choosing your friends is important. If you choose the wrong friends and they're giving you advice that is counter to what the Lord's will is, then yes, we do have to reject that.
We're wanting to do what we really know in our heart is not the right thing. We'll find the people who agree with us.
Yeah.
And avoid the ones who we tell them the right thing to do.
Yes, so Cindy points out sometimes we really have this urge to go do the thing that we know we shouldn't do. So we find a way to justify it. We find alignment with somebody, with a group that thinks the same way, and we self-justify. Again, self-justification is something identified as folly. So it's not all just cut, dried, here's the boxes, you're in this box, you're in that box. It's difficult. It sounds simple, it's easy to say. It's not so easy in practice. It takes care. That's why at the core of all of this, at the core of all of it, is love. That's why I went to chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians. It's love. It all has to be done in love. Even if the friend who is advising us in a counter way, our response can't be foolish. Our response has got to be loving to them. And maybe you're going to help them, bring them in line. Hopefully that makes sense. Fruits. Proverbs 3, verse 35. What do we get from being foolish? The wise shall inherit glory, but shame shall be the legacy of fools. You ever think about your legacy? What are you leaving? 13. 19 and 20. A desire accomplished is sweet to the soul. I think we all can get on board with that. But it is an abomination to fools to depart from evil. He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. Our friends influence us. Period. Exclamation point. We have to choose wisely, and we have to, it's got to be a joint relationship. We're helping them, they are helping us. But it is vitally important. Let's go to the next slide real quick. Last slide. So how do we avoid folly? Well, all these, I think, are going to be pretty logical. Proverbs 9, verse 13 through 18. A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knows nothing. For she sits at the door of her house on a seat by the highest places of the city to call those who pass by, who go straight on their way. It's kind of painting a picture of a siren, right? She's kind of sitting up here like a siren, calling people who go by. Verse 16, whoever is simple, let him turn in here. And as far as him who lacks understanding, she says to him, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of hell. You can see the comment here, but we need to resist shrouded temptations that pretend to be wise, that might use similar language, but are really empty. They lack depth, they lack substance, they lack reality. Proverbs 17, verse 10. Rebuke is more effective for a wise man than 100 blows on a fool. If we don't want to be foolish, if we don't want to practice folly, we need to accept rebuke from a friend, from someone who loves us. We have to evaluate it again, as we've said earlier. We need to make sure we can trust that person with our best interests. But we have to accept it and not reject everything in that knee-jerk kind of way. And then 17:28. Even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace. When he shuts his lips, he is considered perceptive. This is one of the adages that I was talking about earlier. You've heard it said that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. That's kind of what this says. My last little closing statement here on this one. A lot of times, and I'll catch myself doing this, but also when I'm in meetings or anything else, especially when I'm talking to the kids, you see people listening. And again, I'm guilty. You see people listening for the purpose of responding. You can see gears turning as you're talking, and they are busy thinking about what words they're going to say in response, what clever comeback, or what's going to make them sound intelligent in a response to you, instead of listening to understand. And that's a difference here. We have to listen to understand. Then we can respond. Any questions, comments, arguments? Thank you.